Hey Deckers, Dying Like the Beast is here. Huge thanks to Techland for giving me a key via Lurkit to test this out on the Steam Deck. Already over 80,000 concurrent Steam players and sporting verified status, as well as being on GeForce Now as well. Does it deserve verified status? I don't think quite yes, but it is fulfilling most of the criteria, so I can see why it got it. But over 30 frames per second is a bit of a struggle for at least some of the gameplay, and it is defaulting to frame generation on, so it is tricking you, and the first level is very well optimized as we would expect. But when we get into that outside world, we do need to make some tweaks, so definitely need that performance mode. Keep HDR on if you have the OLED, if you are on local, but when I'm recording I need to turn this off. VSync off, and change the upscaler from the default to TAAU on performance. Keep the sharpness around 50. Keep that frame generation off. I'm going to show you with it on why you want to keep that off. And then in the advanced settings, you want to make sure that you have the film grain effect off and keep the texture quality on high, and then turn the motion blur intensity down to 0. This will actually disable the motion blur, but if you turn that up, you can tweak the motion blur quality, but you want that off. And this will get you pretty much the best settings you're going to get on the deck. Now, with the frame generation, it doesn't hold 60 solid, and it actually introduces some really bad lag and really big lag spikes in some of the battles. And you'll see that as I battle more of these monsters at once, it doesn't feel too bad in the initial instance, but you can already see that it's dipping down into the low 50s. And as it's doubling that frame rate, you can see that it's actually dropping below that 30 frames per second, which means we're not getting a decent experience with that frame generation on. Now this gets worse with the more monsters that go on, and especially as there is some streaming of textures when you're running around as well. It can cause major lag spikes when you're running around. If you turn frame generation off, it's actually much better. And although we do still dip under that 30 mark when we have some huge fights going on, for the most part it does stay above that 30, and it feels much more responsive, much more stable, and we don't get as much kind of blurriness in that TAAU performance mode either. It does dip under that 30 when we go into beast mode, especially when we have tons of monsters and blood effects going off. But to be honest, if you weren't looking at the frames per second counter, you're really not going to notice that FPS drop in these instances, because when we're out of the beast mode and running around as normal, it's slow enough that you keep that 30 frames per second up to around 30 to 40, and it does just stay much more stable. Unfortunately, even though areas were seemingly better without frame generation, when I did turn that frame generation back on, it did struggle to keep that 60, and I got more and more dips just moving around, and it didn't feel as comfortable on the Steam Deck. So keep that frame generation off and cap it at 30 frames per second if you want a super stable experience. But of course, this was also added to GeForce Now, and it is also available on the 5080 rig if you have those available to you. So we can actually set this to the high quality preset with DLSS on native. I'm running this at 1920 by 1200 on the Steam Deck, just looks even more crystal clear. And of course we got that 90 Hz mode on the stream now, so we can have HDR 90 Hz on the Steam Deck at maximum settings, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. So I'm in the UK and they don't have the 5080s just yet, but if I connect to France 1, I can get the 5080 with a little bit more of a ping. But as long as that ping's under 45 to 50, you're really not going to notice it. But as you can see with that GeForce Now on maximum settings, even on the Steam Deck, it's looking absolutely gorgeous, and no issue with input latency or anything either. I'll leave you with a bit more of the gameplay here without me talking on GeForce Now if you want to give this a go. This is the ultimate tier, so you will need to subscribe for around £20 a month. But this is also available on the premium tier if you don't want to go for that 5080 maxed out goodness and just want a slightly better experience on the deck. Thanks for watching and enjoy the rest of the video.